think I don't think girls are actually seeing that, because it's the same thing as like the 5-foot nerd guy playing the game, beating up a giant
that's
wrestler.
A great point. I hadn't
you know
really
what I
thought
mean?
about that.
Like it's the exact same thing. It's a fantasy. The girls kicking butt and winning, and that's great. But so is this little nerd guy who'll never be able to beat up. No, I'm not pointing to you, by the way.
It's fine.
So is this guy.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
It's cool.
Have to take that.
But you know what I mean? It goes both ways.
That's a great point.
Just because we're women doesn't mean we're delusional. We're not going to go out and go into an alley and be like, I've played this game, I'm now Buffy.
That's a great point.
So it goes both ways. But with the whole being, the buxom sex objects, like, Lara Croft, she's a very attractive woman. For me, a lot of the games that guys play, like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and stuff, I would like to play them, but they don't really have any women characters that we can play. Like we don't get to choose. You guys get to choose so many different characters in some of these games, and there's maybe like sometimes one female character we get to be. There's never a choice for us. So it's never like
think that would increase. It's so easy to make another character.
It would be so easy to make more
yeah.
women characters, and so you don't even have to create an entire game for women. We want to play the same games the guys are playing. We enjoy those kind of games as well. It's just give us the option to actually play as a woman. I don't want to be like.
So there's just a woman special ops character in Call of Duty or something like that.
That would be amazing. That would be so cool.
The interesting thing about that too is when there is inclusion of a woman character, when you contrast it to the male characters have different aspects. Like this guy's a super hacker genius, and this guy's like an army buff guy. This one's the girl.
The girl.
Yeah, that's our superpower.
The girl.
This one's the girl. This one has boobs. Yeah,
No,
it was
true.
like that's the only thing we got.
And God knows in the real military we have superb women serving out there all the time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to say that I hate to point this out, but I mean, one game that I really loved was God of War. And in the second or third God of War game, there's a scene where he takes a naked woman, props open a door mechanism with her body so that he can go through, and as he goes through, the door comes down and crushes her to death. And I found that so disturbing that was somehow like that was okay for the hero of your game to do. I can't play Grand Theft Auto. I can't play a game where you drag people, let alone the women in it, where you drag people out of their car, innocent people, and hit them over the head with a pipe. Can't do it.
That's a whole other show.
To me.
Yeah.
Well, and going on that, when you said with the whole Gamergate thing about how women were arguing because we were being rescued. In my opinion, it's not about being rescued. I don't mind if Super Mario goes to rescue the princess. I grew up on Super Mario. I would go save the princess. I was like, I got her. We're going. It's that. It's the whole raping a woman, beating her to death. To level up to the next. Level.
And my feeling about that, by the way, is the same as your feeling about fighting. Is that for an adult, if that is part of your fantasy life, well, you're on your own, and that's fine. Right. But I do feel I would never want my kid to.
Children are doing this. Yeah.
My son and I played video games all through his childhood. We sat together and we played video games, and those were the sort of things I edited out. You just don't bring those in when your kid is still being formed.
So maybe we could close on this topic for the day with kind of the fundamental base question, which is, okay, so the question is, can women developers, indie developers, get games made without sleeping around? I mean, if you really want to boil it, hold on. I was being facetious.
No.
Being facetious. But I think the bigger question is, you said earlier, it's like a 4-star title or a major $50 million, $100 game, and that's where the real money is. It's where the real power is. It's where the real marketing is. These all tend to be extremely male-centric games. So the question I really want to ask is, on some level, is this fantasy world of action and adventure an inherently male kind of world? If you're coming out with a game called Depression Quest, and the numbers and the sales are smaller, let's say, than Call of Duty, is that bias and judgment in the culture, or is it simply a fact that I don't need to load up my Xbox One to go on a Depression Quest? I can do that on my own. Jumping out of a jet, on the other hand, or slaying dragons, I need a little horsepower for in terms of the graphics engine. Sure. What do you think, Bonnie? Do you think there's a natural kind of inclination to the big male games?
I mean, the fact that the question is, can women develop a game without or get reviews? With
Certainly they can. But can they be successful
exactly.
games on topic that women that at least that feminists consider appropriate game topics?
Right. I mean, I really just feel the game should stand alone. If I've known many women who have worked in the gaming industry who have, you know, helped create some of the best games in the world, and it's really, you know, maybe that one game was used as an example, and it didn't show exactly what full women can do. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you can't just base it off of this one incident, or, you know, there's so many different games that women are involved with, and
I do think the market is still male.
It's very male dominated. It is, but at the same time, you know, really games should just stand alone. If the game is good, the game is good. If the game is bad, whether it was developed by a woman or a man, I don't care.
Well, that's for sure.
My thoughts on it too is that the game industry, like you said, kind of was like a boys' club when it was growing up. But now that we have people in our generation who have grown up with games, men and women alike, it's just been like a standard that has been established within the industry, but it's never been tested.
Right.
You know, that's just what has sold games in the past, and women can sit down and play a male video game, and men can sit down and play a female-dominated video game, but they just haven't tested the waters.
Well, I think that's a very fair point, but I do think that if it turns out that in fact men are more inherently more engaged in competitive, violent scenarios, that market should stand without being attacked for political reasons. That's all.
Let's just go one step further on this in terms of inclusion, social aspects of the gaming. So let's talk about the LGBT thing. You were talking earlier about how when you have an online game session with friends or people from around the world, you have a screen avatar and you've got a voice on a headphone, maybe. And I've played some first-person shooters, and I played some Counter-Strike games where, you know, it can get, there's nothing I like better than watching videos of people smashing their monitors with hammers. It makes me happy. But basically, you've got a lot of, most of the time, you got a lot of highly adrenalized young men, young men, and you get a lot of language. Oh, it's a gay. Don't be gay. It's a gay move. Don't be a fag. You know, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are aspects of gaming, especially multiplayer online gaming, that are intimidating to people, that where they don't have the face-to-face interaction, realize maybe they're hurting people's feelings in a way much more deeply than they ever intended to?
Absolutely, yeah, and I can speak volumes on this topic. But
say a few.
Yeah, especially with the inclusion of the word faggot, because that's such a heated word within the LGBTQ community that it's been disassociated in the gaming world, whereas kids don't really know what they're saying when they say that. They just heard other people say it, and they say it themselves. That's gay, that's da-da-da-da. And while I have made the observations in the past that I think it's interesting that people aren't associating it with like homophobic context, the context is still there.
Right.
So if I'm a little gay person that's playing a game and I hear this constantly, even though the other person didn't mean it to be homophobic, you're going to internalize and take that no matter what. You know, and so that language is still there, and it's very prominent, and it is a problem because we just need to find alternate ways to curse out someone or to say something awful. But it's that shock value that was there, and now it's just become like a norm. Whereas you want to throw a hammer at your TV, but you can't, so you say something that's the most offensive thing you can think of, and that's what that was.
Do you get that, Bonnie? Do you get when you're playing with other people online, and they find out that you're a real-world female instead of a 60-year-old guy in the basement pretending to be Lara Croft or something? Do you find that people, if let's just say you pop somebody in a online shooter, let's say, do you get the kind of, you know, you bitch kind of thing? Do you get that kind of? Do they go to this sort of base level kind of thing with you? Yeah,
with women, it's more of a like, oh, you're pretty good for a girl.
Yeah,
it's never like the whole, oh, she's a good gamer. It's you're pretty good for a girl. You know, I remember even before like doing the video game thing, Magic the Gathering. I would be one of the only females like at a Magic the Gathering tournament, and they would just be like, and I'd win. They'd just get really upset, not because I'm a good player, but because I'm a girl. And they would just be like, well, she's, you know, I guess she's okay for a girl. Oh, well, I let her win because she, you know, it's like, well, she's distracting me with her cleavage. I'm like, really? Is that the reason? Like, I'm tapping mana and I'm like seductively looking at you. It doesn't work that way. So with gaming, it's, you know, one of those things where when they do find out you're a girl, they're like, you know, oh, well, you know, you bitch, you know, we get a lot. Oh, sorry. But you know what I mean? Like with the same thing, you know, they just don't realize how negative they're being and how offensive they're being because they're just blurting it out in a way that they're, you know, it's
it's a knee-jerk reaction.
I have to say, I'm always torn about these conversations because on the one hand, I hate the culture of victimhood and offense.
Sure.
I hate, like, I'm so offended, I'm so hurt, you said this and you shouldn't have said that. On the other hand, of course, I think people who act like that are bores and idiots. I always feel like there should be, you know, it really is a question of modeling behavior rather than
I will give you,
restricting it.
and we're out of time, I'll just give you one closing observation regarding the slurs that get sent at you guys. And you can try to social engineer those out of society from the top down, but that never works. It has to be, it has to be proven. For example, there was a great deal of resistance to women pilots in the armed forces, women fighter pilots, women helicopter pilots, and you simply couldn't get men. You could give them orders, you'll treat them like other pilots, but they wouldn't. The only way they ended up treating them like other pilots was when in combat they found women going into hot zones and taking the same risks and performing the same duties and acting with the same heroism. And once you see that with your own eyes, then the prejudice goes away. There's a great scene in the movie Glory, which was about the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. It was one of the first black regiments in the Civil War. And they're going past other Union troops, and Union troops go, oh, look at this as a little publicity stunt. And when those black soldiers go in there and take those kind of casualties and show that kind of courage, those of them that come out are not, they're not objects anymore, and they don't have to be commanded to respect them. They respect them based on what they saw. And I think as this community gets more and more interactive and more gay gamers and women gamers are just popping the living daylights out of little straight kids, it's not going to be a slur anymore. It's like this gay man just whopped the crap out of me. He's done it 60 times in a row. Maybe I ought to modify my language.
At that point, by the way, somebody saying pretty good for a girl is really the way guys talk when they're paying you a compliment.
And you know what? It never really offends me. Like it takes a lot to offend me. Like I grew up being one of the guys. You know, like I was like the really odd kid with the headgear and the you know.
I've got a very clear mental picture of that. That's all that we have time for our second episode. We're having so much fun. We just do this forever, but we probably will. We'll be back for sure. You can find my friend Andrew Klavan on Klavan and Whittle, as well as my co-host right here, and you can also find him on PJTV. Look for his articles on PJ Media. You can find Bonnie Gordon on Twitter at BonnieBellG, and you can find Xander Jeanneret on Twitter at Xanderific. You won't want to miss the other parts of this PJTV series, so check them out right here on the members-only page or over at the PJTV store. I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again soon.